Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Franke and Anna Wells. We each have about 15 years covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 biggest stories on our websites and discuss the implications they might have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also do us a big favor by leaving a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach any of us at David, Jeff, or Anna at IEN.com. Jeff, we've had a week away. Do you feel refreshed?
I feel probably too relaxed. So this could, we're going to need a little bit of patience with our listeners on this one. So there's a lot of pauses and ums. It's just the vacation brain still in effect, I think.
All right. When Jeff goes quiet, I'm coming to you, Anna.
I'm glad we chose this week after a week off to really just stand really close at this tiny shelf together.
Yeah, it's been at least 10 days since I've been this close to anyone.
Smallest area possible.
Yeah. Actually, we got positive feedback on the new setup. Loyal listener Doug, he's down with the holodeck, so I think we're just going to roll with that.
That's its name now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The holodeck, brought to you by loyal listener Doug. All right, our top story this week. Tesla delivers more than 200,000 vehicles in the second quarter. Tesla says it delivered 201,250 electric vehicles while battling a global computer chip shortage that has hit nearly every automaker. While the sales fell short of Wall Street estimates for 207,000 vehicles, the company beat first quarter sales of 185,000. The company is on pace to double last year's nearly 500,000 deliveries and could hit 900,000 in annual sales this year. During the quarter, Tesla dealt with cruise control issues in China and recalled 285,000 vehicles after reports of cruise control being accidentally activated. Tesla only counts a car as delivered if it is transferred to the customer and all paperwork is correct. Jeff, I think they did better than a lot of people were expecting.
It's really impressive, especially if you remember when the Model 3 first came out and they had that influx of orders. They had some serious deliverability problems in terms of people being told the vehicle was going to be there and then it wasn't. And even more impressive, if you look back since 2015, Tesla's numbers are up almost tenfold, 100-fold. In 2015, they had just over 50,000 delivered vehicles. There's that vacation brain kicking in. And last year, you said almost 500,000. Mm-hmm. So the rise has been extremely impressive. And as impressive as it is going from almost 5 to 9, you look back, I think their biggest jump to date was really 2017 and 2018. They increased by 140,000 vehicles. So if they're looking to more than double in 2021, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of automotive supply chain challenges, incredibly impressive. And at some point, maybe we need to give Elon Musk a little bit of credit.
Anna, is it time to give Elon Musk credit?
I want to. As Jeff said, Tesla's really done as well as they could have possibly done, considering the circumstances and everyone being kind of hamstrung by this chip shortage. I think these numbers did tell us something else too, which is, to your point, Jeff, we talk about Elon Musk a lot and how he kind of does his own thing and he bucks the system and he says what he wants and he does what he wants. And we've talked before about how long can you continue to do this before maybe it catches up to you or it catches up to your brand or people start to feel these scandals are a little bit distasteful. Like Nissan, they have been recovering from their executive scandal, which was huge, right? Their CEO got arrested. He fled the country of Japan. But they have been in the red for now almost 3 years, I think, still saying we're still trying to get past this. So there was a lot of brand damage that was done by their chief executive. And Tesla, there's been SEC investigations. There have been, safety ratings yanked because of their protocols. There's been privacy issues, things, as you said, issues with deliverability, all this stuff. But Tesla just seems like they are resistant to letting this bad news ever actually impact their brand. People are still buying Teslas. You don't hear anything about this. Their stock has been going crazy. I don't know. Maybe Elon Musk is coated in Teflon. Maybe we do owe him some credit. I don't know. We must.
Do you attribute that to his charisma, or is Tesla still a relatively niche brand?
I think so. The scale is different. If you compare Tesla sales to Nissan or something like that, it's much smaller. So I think there are just those people that are just really behind the EV movement, and Tesla is sort of the the rock star of that genre of vehicle. I think what's also though a little bit impressive with these numbers and how they've grown is that there's not a typical service availability sort of dynamic that you'd expect with a regular vehicle.
Right.
Really, the only thing you can take to a sort of general repair shop, if you will, is the tires, and even then you have to be careful because Tesla only approves certain third parties to do any work on their vehicles. So the big things to me always when you think about a vehicle are brakes and tires. The tires aren't too much of a challenge because at the end of the day, it's a wheel.
Tire, yeah.
But I mean, when you look at regenerative braking, that's a different dynamic.
Mhm.
So if something does go wrong that can't be repaired by some of their over-the-air software fixes, you do have to find a place to take it and have it fixed. So you're going to lose your vehicle for a couple of days probably.
Yeah.
So it's unique there, but that doesn't seem to be stopping the growth. What's the next step though, I guess, for them? What is the next benchmark for them to clear in terms of becoming, like you had described it as sort of a niche brand, and I would agree with that. What does it take for them? What number is it before they become more of a mainstream? And then how do they address some of these things? Because it is going to be different to go just buy a Tesla. When you're doing that, that's an event. That's something you really prepare for, and you have to do your research a little bit in terms of where can I go, where can I get it serviced, all that kind of stuff. So as impressive as the growth is, you just wonder where does it start to plateau, and then what does that brand have to do to go to the next level?
Cybertruck. That's what they have to do.
Cybertruck?
Yeah.
Well, you talk about them being the rock star brand, and part of it is like the Cybertruck. Part of it is that when you think of, a Tesla versus a Leaf, I don't even think there's a question.
No, one is exciting and one isn't. Yeah.
One is a Leaf.
One is a Leaf. Yeah.
Well, so I tried to look up some of the sales comparisons, particularly with EV sales year over year, so we could compare it to like traditional combustion engine sales. But given the exponential growth of EV sales combined with, major automakers revealing EV only strategies within the next 10 to 15 years, Anna, is this finally going to force buyers to make the transition? I mean, I looked at it personally, and with almost all automakers within the next 10 to 15 years, saying everything's going EV,
Yeah.
and I know I'm going to turn over at least one, probably two cars in that time period, it made me kind of step back and think like, oh, I'm going to have to buy an EV finally, because I always juggle with it, and then I just, hybrid.
Yeah.
And I was struggling to think like, okay, I will be all right with that and be willing to make the plunge.
Yeah. I mean, the data on EV adoption, I feel like is a little bit misleading because I think there is a group of people out there, I'm included, I think you're probably included, that have their eye on EVs but are waiting for the technology to kind of work out. We know that there's all these new brands and models that are going to be flooding the market in the next few years. We know that battery technology is progressing very quickly. We know that charging is progressing quickly. So why do you buy an EV now? You probably don't.
Yeah.
You wait 2-3 years and either you have your pick of brand new models or the used market will be flooded with tons of stuff that would be serviceable and a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think like maybe there's more demand there than is like maybe patently obvious with those numbers. I don't know about forcing people into it. I think that it'll be interesting to see, obviously, as you mentioned. But
Well, not so much forced, but I mean, Jeff, in like 10 to 15 years, a lot of automakers are only making EVs, they say.
They say. But it is going to be a market dynamic. That's what's going to drive all of that. If they really do go that route, if people still want to buy gas-fired vehicles in such a majority that they can't overproduce, or they can only produce so many of these EVs in order to be profitable, then that's what they're going to do. And that's what they should do. I think we are in a little bit of a vacuum in the US too. I mean, US car sales, only like 1% of them are electric vehicles. It's much bigger than that when you look globally in different countries, especially in the EU, especially China. So that's what's going to be interesting too, is the US consumer going to sort of keep pace with some of these other big automotive markets around the world? Or are we going to remain who we are?
But didn't those other auto markets decide for them?
well, gas is also a lot more expensive over there in the EU, so that makes it easier to make that choice, I would think.
It's just, it's different. I mean, when you look at the vehicles that are driving around Europe, you don't see as many, like I drive a larger sedan. You don't see that vehicle over there. You just, you don't. They're smaller cars typically. Even the SUVs, I think, are a little bit smaller in terms of scale.
Yeah.
So
There's nowhere to park.
Yeah, on the cobblestone winding road.
Right.
All right. The fourth most popular story this week: Amtrak to pay $7.3 billion to replace aging trains. Amtrak wants to replace 83 passenger trains, and some of them are nearly 50 years old. Last week, the company announced $7.3 billion to overhaul part of its fleet. Some of the trains will be hybrids that operate on diesel fuel when wires are unavailable for electricity, though the company says that the new diesel trains will at least pollute less than the previous ones. The new engines and passenger cars will be built in Sacramento, California, with delivery scheduled to start in 2024. Some of the new amenities include more comfortable seating, better ventilation systems, individual power outlets and USB ports, onboard Wi-Fi, and panoramic windows. The railroad will could buy another 130 trains from Siemens if all goes well. And the trains will be capable of traveling up to 125 miles per hour, but they're often limited to 90 miles per hour by track conditions. Anna, perhaps the infrastructure bill could help out with that.
Yeah, it's nice to see money being put into public transportation on a national level, not something that's just like a local, bus thing or whatever. But yeah, if you look at some of those details, there's some work to be done there. Like you mentioned, the speed at which these trains can go. So if Amtrak says that the trains are capable of traveling 125 miles an hour, which is not exactly what's considered high-speed rail, right? High-speed rail is more like 200 miles per hour, but it's still a nice bump over highway speeds. I think that at some point a certain speed is more compelling to people to like ditch their car and take public transit into work or into a city. But as you said, the trains can't travel more than 90 miles per hour because of track conditions, which means it would be nice to see some infrastructure funding go into the rail lines in a way that can support not only this, what we have now, but maybe future high-speed rail. I don't know. I was surprised when I read this article when they said that Amtrak ridership hit a record high in 2019. So pre-pandemic, it was the most it had ever been.
Yeah.
I was shocked by that piece of information because I thought that it was just sort of this dying thing. I know city dwellers, people that are living in the suburbs and commuting in are much more likely to use this. But like when you read about like taking train rides cross country, like how expensive and slow it is, I just thought this was a dying thing. Apparently not. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking about Amtrak because I don't know enough about it.
Well, the few times that I've been on the train, comparatively, when we're out on the East Coast, I always think, every day on this, huh? Every day? That's a pass for me. But, Jeff, maybe, actually, I wouldn't care about the seating. Really, I would care about the power outlets, the Wi-Fi, and if you could figure out some way to, like, soundproof certain people, I think it would make it much more enjoyable.
Here's all you need to know to try to understand Amtrak. It is state-owned, but for-profit. How many of those types of entities do you know that are government-run, but are profitable?
I don't think there's any, Jeff.
There's not, and Amtrak is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Even since its founded, it was 1971 is when the government took it over. It has never made a profit. It has always lost millions of dollars every year. 2020 was actually looking to be the first year it could have made a profit, and then the pandemic hit. So Amtrak, and actually I got a little bit of background with this because I used to work for a magazine called Mass Transit that covered this, and Amtrak was a big part of it, especially right around late 90s. Here in Wisconsin, it got a little bit of a headlines because our governor actually took over the chairmanship of Amtrak for a while. So, but it's always been very difficult because it is government funded. You have to be sort of equal in terms of where you put Amtrak services, when the reality is the only real profitable routes it has are in the Northeast Corridor, taking people between Boston, DC, Philly, New York, all of that. There is where Amtrak makes its money. These cross-trip rail lines and stuff that are beautiful and you can see all this wonderful stuff, they lose tons of money on them. They're not profitable because there's not enough people on them. And like Anna said, they're slow and they're expensive. What I remember Amtrak was if you bounced out of basic training, they put you on Amtrak to get you home because it took forever. So these guys would be like, yeah, it was a cool ride, but it took me 3 days to get to like, St. Louis from Dallas. So, it's so I'm conflicted when we look at this type of investment going in here. I think for where it is utilized, it makes a ton of sense. Public transportation, drawing these folks, reducing the amount of stuff on the road. It's safer, it's better, all that. But you're investing $7 billion into an organization that has never turned a profit.
Well, I think so. That were some of the things that I was encouraged by is that they were looking at specific areas like the Northeast Corridor and in the Pacific Northwest. They were going to focus on those areas first, it sounded like, and then that's where the other trains could come into play after they made those upgrades in the high need areas. And Anna, to your point, they reached 32.4 million passengers in 2019. Now it's only back to about 62% of that.
Yeah.
It's only worked its way back. And prior to the pandemic, they operated 310 trains per day. Now that's down to 201, but that should be back to full schedule by September or October. So,
but perhaps this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Look at the ones that are working.
Yeah.
Keep those. Invest in those. As cool as it might sound to take a train through the Northwest Passage, not a lot of people are doing that.
Hey, I read Murder on the Orient Express. I'm not getting on a train and taking it for very long. You don't know. You know,
especially if there's not a real sleuthy French investigator on board who
right.
could dig up background on anybody.
My mistake that I made on Amtrak was I didn't know the difference between the express and the commuter train. So that was what I'm assuming they send people back on from basic, where the commuter train is the one that stops at every stop. And I was like headed to Baltimore from New York, and I'm like, this is taking forever. They're like, look at your ticket.
I took my family out to New York. We took an Amtrak out of the city to, I think it was Connecticut. And it was great because it was so much easier getting on there, even with the stops. Still would have taken that over trying to drive that any day. Yeah. So definitely great opportunities here. Just use them the right way.
How about now with better Wi-Fi? Jeff's
more comfortable seats.
Well, I'm sure my daughters who keep their heads down, buried in their phones, would be very appreciative of that.
True.
So, like real world example though, if there was good rail from Madison to O'Hare, I mean, we would take it
in a heartbeat.
Yep.
Same thing up to the Twin Cities. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that drive is garbage. Like where you got that 5 a.m. flight out of O'Hare, and you just like,
do you have the 5 a.m. flight out of O'Hare because you waited until like a week before to book it?
I mean, maybe it's 2 days before.
Every time. Yeah.
Every single time. Man.
But it's still a banging deal. Yes, I'm busted on that one. Our third most popular story, second chemical fire at Bangkok factory highlights health risks. Last Monday, a massive explosion at the Ming De chemical factory in Bangkok killed one person and injured many. The fire started around 3 a.m. at a foam and plastic pellet manufacturing factory. The blast in Thailand's capital prompted evacuations and damaged many area homes, blowing out windows and sending debris raining from the air. The blast could be heard for miles, but they were able to put the fire out after fighting it for 24 hours. Then, on Tuesday, the factory again burst into flames, sending another toxic cloud of black smoke into the community and burning for another hour. More than 60 people were injured in the disaster, and the factory manager told authorities that he and 8 staff members were sleeping on the site when they were woken up by a strong chemical smell, and they were able to escape just before the blast. Jeff, if anything, this story was a reminder of how things are done a little bit differently on the other side of the globe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely one who has been critical of all of our wonderful government agencies, but with everything in between the Department of Labor, OSHA, the EPA, we would have a lot more answers if this happened. Well, we just had that one up in Northern Illinois.
Right.
We had that type of situation, and there was even an assessment there on what was being used to control the fire and the chemicals and things like that. Here, they can't even get there yet. They're still trying to figure out what exactly was on fire, what was burning, what are the long-term ramifications here. And even though that's one of the most critical parts of it, even the individuals who are combating this fire, they were wearing surgical masks.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't even have the correct protective equipment to use to control it.
Mhm.
So what does that tell you about the whole operation from a safety perspective? And if you looked at these pictures, this is a hole in the ground now.
Yeah.
This was not just some
Mhm.
stuff caught on fire. They put it out. There's still a framework of a building. It is down. It is nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing.
It is
there.
ash. So it is extremely scary when
Mhm.
you look at what could have been released into the ground, the air, and anybody who's in the vicinity trying to either get away from this fire
Yeah.
or combat it, short term and long term. So, yeah, when we complain about, and like I said, I'm guilty of this as anybody, we complain about some of the over regulatory oversight that we have with manufacturing here in the US, we do have to pause a minute and be appreciative of the fact that we would be able to avoid some of this.
Mhm.
Right. Well, that's no. In Illinois, we're going the American route, where there are already hundreds of lawsuits about it. Anna. So I read that what they were making is styrene monomer used to make foam plates, cups, and other products, and it can produce poisonous foam or fumes while ignited. So basically, they did figure out a little bit about what was burning and what went into the ground, and it sounds like none of it's good.
Doesn't sound good.
No.
I know. It's like it's so sad that this went down at a place that's creating a product that shouldn't even exist anymore. Like we all
Yeah.
know about styrofoam's inability to break down. Maybe if we started calling styrofoam plates forever plates, then
Forever plates.
people would take it seriously. But
Yeah.
Jeff mentioned the Chemtool fire that we covered recently in Illinois. We covered that ship that was burning off the coast of Sri Lanka for a very long time that was packed full of chemicals, and the environmental disaster that sort of ensued there. It is what's going on here. To me, my first thought is maybe this is going to be sadly like kind of a more dangerous and deadly year for industrial sector because everybody is dealing with all this pent up demand, and you see factories adding shifts. They're running, their uptime is as much as they can handle.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about these ships that are running routes like maybe they shouldn't be running, just because everyone is working like overtime to try to get at this pent up demand and get this stuff done and work through their supplies and their backlogs and stuff. So, unfortunately, there's going to be more accidents. There's probably going to be more fires. I mean, that's just the nature of running nonstop, as it sounds like everyone is or trying to do if they have the help to do it. So, I mean, it's a good reminder, I think, for everyone to kind of take a second look at their safety protocols and their policies and their storage and all that stuff. And, are your policies designed around a shop that runs one shift and maybe now it's running two? Like, take a look at that, right? So, because obviously this happens in Thailand, it happens here, it happens on the ocean, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, when it happens in Thailand, when they're making products that we're going to buy here. So I think the other thing is that on a personal level, you got to make some of those choices as a consumer also. I mean, Jeff, I don't know if this happens to you, but when you're at the barbecue and you go to grab the plate and it's the foam plate, you're like, damn, I still really want a hot dog. And it's just like there's that inherent guilt, but like
You have the bun. You can hold it with the bun.
Where do you put your baked beans and coleslaw? Anna?
Chips. No, I only
Put
have
your
two
baked
hands.
beans in your hand, Jeff.
What if they're hot, Anna? What if they're hot beans?
Hot beans aside, there has to be a great.
Eat them off the hood of your car, Jeff.
Gross.
Is there any guilt? Do you experience any guilt when like you wind up using products like this that you maybe wouldn't normally purchase?
Guilt? I'm being honest. No, not guilt.
Yeah.
But I think when you do look back at it, you're like, no. If it was like my event or whatever,
Yeah.
you want to try to avoid that. But if you're at somebody else's house and that's what they have, I'm not going to say I feel guilty about it. It's not my preferred route to go.
Yeah.
But I think even as consumers, yes, individual consumers, we look at that. But also if you're, I don't know, in this case, maybe you're a food service company, do you look at more closely at your supply chain to make sure that there aren't potentially individuals that you're sourcing from that are contributing to these types of safety issues, these types of situations that arise because safety is not at a premium.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are within the supply chain, you would hope that goes further up, to whoever is directly buying from this type of facility is looking more closely at that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, to Anna's point, with all of this demand, I think people are sort of just not looking at that, not scrutinizing that in the same way they would have before.
Yeah.
If it's available and I can get it here on time, I'm going for it. And I agree with her. I think that is what is leading to more of these types of situations.
Well, we're in a global race to economic recovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, that might have a huge impact on consumer packaged goods.
Yeah, everybody wants a piece, and
Yeah.
they're working as fast as they can to get it. And
Man, just less foam plates, and I think we're fine.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the first step.
The first step
Yeah.
is
No, when I talked about the styrene monomer, when it burns, it actually emits styrene gas, a neurotoxin, which immobilizes people within minutes of inhalation and can be fatal at high concentrations. So it's actually, a number of people were injured during this. Many of them were the first responders. But really, it's lucky that there weren't more fatalities, given the PPE
Yeah,
that were.
I think it was the one firefighter.
The one,
correct?
like volunteer firefighter, yeah. And there's no number that is acceptable, but it could have been way worse.
Yeah.
All right, the second most popular story this week. Pentagon cancels disputed cloud contract. Last week, the Pentagon canceled its $10 billion cloud computing contract with Microsoft. Now the DoD will work out a deal with both Microsoft and Amazon. When Microsoft first received the initial reward, Amazon fought back with legal challenges, saying the award was tainted by politics. So the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure, or JEDI contract, is now dead, and the Joint Warfighter Cloud Capability, or JWCC, which is way less cool, is the new deal with both Amazon and Microsoft, quote, likely being awarded parts of the business, but Google, IBM, and Oracle might qualify too. The Pentagon's chief information officer, John Sherman, told reporters last Tuesday that during the lengthy legal fight with Amazon, quote, the landscape has evolved with new possibilities for large-scale cloud computing services. And Anna, this was a fun article to kind of read between the lines of just like, they're going to be a tremendous pain, and so we're going to get rid of all this to make it nice.
the reasoning of the landscape has evolved was my favorite vague language of of the day, but I don't know. I can see wanting to diversify from a vendor standpoint or from a technology standpoint. I mean, that makes sense. But it does kind of the way they like the landscape has evolved. It kind of did leave you wondering if like Amazon's assertion that they didn't get the contract originally because Donald Trump hated Jeff Bezos, if that might actually hold some water here. I don't know. We have no way of knowing. But we do know that politicians play favorites, not just Trump. All of them do. And I just thought it was interesting timing, too, that like we're talking about turning up the heat on taxation on some of these big companies. And then suddenly the government is in a position to pay like
many billions.
Yeah, like a handful of these big companies back with like a big contract that may sort of make that a less I don't know. It cause fewer problems, maybe less pushback if Google, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon all get a piece of this deal and it's multi-billion dollars for each. Cool, I guess. It's not that any of them don't deserve it. They're all quite capable companies, but it's pretty easily defended, that choice. So
Yeah, the grim outlook on many things last week. It's Jeff, is this just a little bit of payback for some of the big players that might get a little bit more?
I'll double down on what Anna said. There is no doubt in my mind that this was that the Trump administration's decision was just a direct slap at Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
I was trying to be diplomatic, but I'll let you say it. That's
no
fine.
way. And I'll say that as a card-carrying, Republican conservative. I mean, there's just no way that was not what was done here. In my opinion, when you're looking at cloud computing and especially security for Department of Defense data, the more smart people you can put in that room,
Sure.
the better.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good move. I got nothing against Microsoft. I think just getting more people involved is better.
Mhm.
We do that with everything else in the Department of Defense. How many defense contractors are there? Okay. And that's
Yeah.
because everybody does something a little better.
Mhm.
Okay. It's what they do, it's their core competency. Make full use of all of that to do this right
Yeah.
and spread it out a little bit. I have no problem with that at all. And potentially what this could lead to then is when companies of this size get these types of contracts, or at least it does when you're looking at hardware, it also trickles down and creates new opportunities for some smaller vendors. Now, I know this is more cloud computing and storage and security. You're not looking at physical products,
Mhm.
but you think it could potentially also stimulate some opportunities that way for some smaller businesses. And a lot of things with these government contracts also try to bring in minority-owned businesses and things of that nature.
Mhm.
So I think, again, spreading it out just makes a ton of sense and does sort of right a administrative wrong that
Yeah.
was done. I don't think there's any way around that.
I agree with all these points, but can you think of another example where complaining and being litigious has been so profitable?
I did not expect this to turn over.
No, it was just, I mean, I expected it to be a legacy, we got the Pentagon contract, but whatever. But instead, they threatened litigation, spent millions of dollars
Mhm.
being a fly in the ointment, and I mean, it paid off. Now
Yeah.
they got a piece of that $10 billion pie opening up. And it was just that I found like so many times you see those lawsuits and you think they're frivolous.
Mhm.
And hey, this is proof that it kind of paid off.
Well, let's also not be naive. These are
Yeah.
some big companies with some deep pockets who have lobbyists and influence and everything else. So I'm sure there is some other stories surrounding this. It wasn't just the Biden administration saying, you know what, this wasn't done right.
Mhm.
We need to be more altruistic and just do the right thing
Do
for the
the right
American
thing.
people.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the sole driver here. either.
Oh, back on the language surrounding this, that was absolutely hilarious. Microsoft's statement in the most passive aggressive manner, in my tone that I understood it, said, "We understand the DoD's rationale, and we support them and every military member who needs the mission-critical 21st century technology Jedi would have provided. The DoD faced a difficult choice: continue with what could be a years-long litigation battle or find another path forward." Man, that's just him being like, I'm so pissed, but I still need a piece of that.
And it's also them saying, we're going to play nice because we want some of these monopoly conversations to just go away.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Amazon responded by saying it understands and agrees with the Pentagon's
They agree.
decision.
That's so strange that they would agree.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
This big pile of money just opened up again, and they're like, oh, it makes sense. It makes sense. All right. Our most popular story this week. Lawsuit accuses Amazon of price gouging through the pandemic. A new class action lawsuit accuses Amazon of price gouging during COVID-19. The lawsuit was recently expanded to include a proposed class of all Amazon shoppers nationwide. According to Hoggins Berman, the law firm behind the suit, some of the gouging included face masks, which were up 1,800% from $4.21 to about $80, toilet paper, which was up more than 1,000% from $17.50 to $200, and black beans, up 521% from $3.54 to $21.99. Other emergency and medical supplies, as well as cleaning and personal hygiene products. In Hoggins Berman,
I know exactly what she's thinking.
$21 black beans. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, because I caught that too. I remember this.
Yeah.
I could not find black beans at the grocery store. What was up with black beans?
I don't know. I always had an ample supply of black beans. I don't know.
No, it was like that part of the shelving at the grocery store was bare.
So
It was
weird.
the
so
supply
weird.
chain was off. I don't know. I guess I had like bags of the dehydrated stuff. Well, Hoggins Berman says that it is one of the most successful consumer litigation firms in the U.S. and has achieved more than $260 billion in settlements for consumers in lawsuits against food corporations, automakers, big banks, and others. Anna, did you fall victim to such gouging?
No, because I watch Amazon's pricing like a hawk, and I get so mad when they try to overcharge me on baby wipes and the like. And then I just go to Target with my pocketbook. No, this is interesting because there's a paper trail. Amazon was accused of price gouging like before the pandemic shutdowns even started, like when people were starting to get nervous about the virus and buying extra hand sanitizer and gloves and masks. The prices on their marketplace started to go crazy. and people were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then Amazon went in and cleared out a bunch of those listings. But they would just pop right back up, And so like that, it's just such it really illustrates the challenges that Amazon has policing their marketplace because, the language in this article, they're accusing Amazon of this, Amazon of that, Amazon did this knowingly, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of these products, I'm assuming, were marketplace products.
Party.
Yeah. So, but, the way Amazon sets up their site is they let their third-party sellers sell via Prime and fulfilled by Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So they align their brand with these sellers. And this, I think, is a situation where that does not work out well for Amazon because now it appears that Amazon's like kind of putting their heft behind these sellers when in fact it was these sellers probably who were the ones that were trying to take advantage of the consumers. So I don't know what happens here exactly. I mean, it's an interesting case because if Amazon's not the one who's selling the products, if they're just the marketplace, the platform, is Amazon to be held liable for the pricing? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've certainly been held liable in the past for quality issues, and there was some counterfeit products that in sort of a landmark suit, I think it was last year or the year before, Amazon was held responsible for, I think, vitamins or something that were being sold on their site that they did not, that were not legit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know where this goes. I don't know how it lands for Amazon.
Jeff, you really struggled with black beans that mightily, huh?
It was weird.
Yeah.
Like every other trip to the grocery store.
Yeah. But when you see pricing like this on the platform, doesn't it raise red flags to you? And I don't know, there's a part of me that just says, if you're going to pay $200 for toilet paper, that's on you.
I agree 100%. What I couldn't find, I read this a couple times. I couldn't determine who they're suing exactly.
Exactly.
To Anna's point. Because if you're just going after Amazon as a whole, we've talked about this in other circumstances. There's no law against being a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you want to be a jerk about stuff, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if Amazon wants to jack up the prices on TP and hand wipes, I mean, that is something they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
I don't advocate for it. I don't think it's a best practice. I don't think anybody would. But saying that they were breaking the law by doing so seems like an awful big swing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, to Anna's point, if they're going after either the sellers, that's not Amazon. Then you have to go after some of these individual sellers. Or if they're going after the vendors. In other words, were some of those providers of those products gouging Amazon, so then Amazon in turn had to raise the prices on consumers. That's what would need to be clarified for me to really understand what they think they're going to accomplish. To me, this seems like more of a group of people getting really pissed off. Mm-hmm. A law firm seeing something where they could make a lot of headlines and get a lot of notoriety by going after a big company, well, the biggest company.
Yeah.
To do that. And if nothing else, hopefully it does get Amazon to scrutinize and police their suppliers a little bit and their resellers more carefully.
Yeah.
That would be the best outcome because it's hard to imagine anything really happening here. Even if Amazon would settle, that sets a horrible precedent for them. I mean, they're going to be open to lawsuits forever about this. And but how do you define price gouging?
I think is it specifically price gouging because it happened during the pandemic, because it was during a global crisis?
I think so. So like, I just because you were talking about price gouging and I didn't know if it was actually illegal or not, I just looked it up. And it is, or in most states it is. Mm-hmm. Most states have laws against like increasing prices on something when the demand ticks up to a certain degree, and it's like a violation of unfair or deceptive trade practices law. So there are most states that says that they can enforce criminal penalties for price gouging violations. So, Amazon may be
really on the hook for this,
struggling to. But again, like who is the one that should be prosecuted here? Is it the marketplace or is it the individual seller?
I think just thinking about it, I mean, if the marketplace, if Amazon is the one enabling that sale, mm-hmm. That product doesn't get sold for $200 unless it's on Amazon. It's not like the guy can move them out of the back of his truck for $200, or maybe he can. I don't know.
Right. No, it's very slippery. I know. And Amazon, like, because of all the problems they've had with counterfeits, they have increased some of their checks and balances internally to try to prevent problems with sellers just kind of doing whatever they want, But I still don't think they have enough of a handle on what's being just put up there. They can't get to it in time. Stuff is getting put up there that they aren't managing preemptively, and that's the problem.
Jeff, do you get any red flags based on the law firm that was behind this lawsuit?
No, I think there's a fair number of these types of law firms, and I think at its core, there is a positive outcome, okay? Even if it is just raising awareness for Amazon internally to police this better.
Yeah.
I just struggle when we tout our capitalist economy and how it is, it's what you earn, it's what you put in for it, it's reinforcing value and all that type of thing. And then we start going after people when they start charging too much. Now, again, I think it's a jerk move to raise the price on those things, but to police that to an extent where they can be liable, I don't know. That bothers me when it's not is toilet paper a medical supply,
Yeah.
Were my tacos at home that much worse because I couldn't get black beans or I didn't want to pay for them?
I mean, apparently so.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. It depends.
I didn't feel.
Did you score any lives? Where did the flavor come from?
I think a lot of that price gouging, definitely when you look at the medical stuff, like we see that the EpiPens just shot up a couple years ago. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's where you want this type of regulation to come into play. I don't know. This seems like a big swing.
Yeah, it is harder when it's toilet paper and face masks and other cleaning supplies. But when the pandemic started and I needed inhalers for my kid, and those were out because everybody was trying to get their hands on as many as possible, then there was real anger and consequences.
Well, the other thing, too, is, and I know Amazon has sort of become just a part of our lives, and that's where we go to, and that's how we fulfill things. I mean, it's basically, I know people who toilet paper, paper toweling, they just have a regular order. It's coming in on a regular basis, and that works for them. That's great. The other thing is that we noticed during, a year ago or whatever, if we went out of town a little bit, you could find stuff. I mean, it's not convenient. It's not easy. It's not something everybody's capable of doing, but there were other options. I don't think Amazon is in a, such a controlling state that there were no other options or other places to go either for these things that people needed. There were other options.
And in general, Amazon at first, Amazon was really undercutting on price to sort of be under larger local competitors, box stores like that. And a couple of years ago, I realized that they were actually creeping up to be more and more expensive than some of those other traditional stores that I would otherwise go to. And so sometimes you just got to shop around a little bit. I don't know.
I found that with books,
Yeah.
like Barnes and Noble. A lot of times they're better than Amazon.
Yeah. But you don't get it. You can't order it drunk.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could.
Yeah. Oh, I guess.
They
Yeah.
just don't have all those things. If you like this, maybe you like these 500 bags of candy
Yeah.
Oh,
if you
yeah.
like
That
black
somebody
beans,
likes.
maybe you like baked beans.
in your hands
In your hands.
because somebody won't put out a styrofoam bowl.
Eating them on the hot hood of a car. Man, all right. Well, let's move on to, in case you missed it, the stories this week that weren't as popular, but still could make a big impact on the industry going forward. I'll start because I don't know if it'll have a big impact on the industry going forward, but it was hilarious. A desktop water jet was used to cut out cow-shaped beef. Before the 4th of July, engineers at Wazer made some tweaks to the company's desktop water jet. While the machine is typically used to cut metal and glass, Wazer used it to cut meat. They cut cow-shaped steaks and slabs with the company's logo, but they had to change the traditional cutting media in the machine. The desktop water jet typically uses abrasive mineral particles to cut materials. But, since they were planning to eat it, they changed the media and filled the hopper with popcorn salt. The employees then built a grill out of spare parts to have a barbecue. And I just think that's awesome. The project wasn't without its challenges. Some shapes, including the CEO's, didn't make the cut.
Ooh, steak CEO.
Yeah, Wazer CEO Nissan Laria said, quote, "Water jet meat cutting is harder than it looks."
Really? It looks hard
Yeah.
already.
You have to cut the meat while it's still frozen to retain the shape. The designs need to be very simple, and his butterfly-shaped chicken nuggets didn't make it. And as we were preparing for the holiday, I just saw this story, and it brought me joy, if nothing else. I mean, we see so many things we talk about custom food products, particularly with 3D printing. I know they were 3D printing pizzas at one time and other products. And this was just an interesting, an interesting story of seemingly some engineers at a water jet manufacturer having a little bit of fun. And I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely brings some like media to 3D printing, which I feel like was sort of like a big thing for a while, and then now no one talks about it anymore.
No, yeah, it's additive manufacturing, and it's serious. You can't make trinkets anymore.
Right.
It's going to revolutionize the business.
Yeah.
No, but it's a small, a CNC machine or not a CNC machine, a water jet. You typically think massive machine that's out on the floor, taking up a lot of space. And this company specializes in making a desktop version that's much more accessible. But Jeff, did you see the cow-shaped steak?
It's fantastic.
And the grill marks were perfect.
I thought it was a cool application. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to put these out on the grill?
Yeah.
I thought it was very cool.
And I just picture the engineers being like, well, we cut the meat. Where do we cook it now? And they realize they don't have a Weber in the office like we do. And so, of course, engineers being engineers, they're like, I mean, we're in a shop. We'll make one.
Yeah, let's just make a grill quick and we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Said a bunch of engineers.
Where did the idea come from? Let's make a cow-shaped steak. Like, was that something kicking around for a while?
Oh,
and they
that's
just like,
it. I mean,
it's time.
like accidental pun, but I mean, that's a deep cut. Like, no, we're going to make.
That you have been thinking about that since you put this story up.
Since right now. No, it's, I was just like, oh man, they did it. They made a steak shaped like a cow, and I love them for it. Also, when you're submitting designs for food to be cut out of this machine, how do you go with butterfly-shaped chicken nuggets?
That's
That's a little weird stretch.
Yeah. I mean, just try to make a firework out of chicken. I don't know. Jeff, yeah. What was your in case you missed it this week?
So I think this one ran right before the weekend of the 4th. And mine was Panasonic unloading their stake in Tesla. So basically, Panasonic has been the battery supplier for Tesla since they've been getting going. They will continue to be, even though Tesla is working on developing their own battery. So right now, the companies, they're still working together. But way back in the day in 2010, Panasonic purchased 1.4 million shares in Tesla for $30 million. So there's a good infusion of capital there for Tesla. But what was most impressive here is when Panasonic sold this, they netted around $3.6 billion.
Yeah.
I'm not real good at math, so maybe somebody wants to check this, but I believe that's a 12,000% return on their investment.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
If indeed they are going to use these funds for research and development into electronic batteries, that's something that could benefit all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to Panasonic for a pretty smart investment.
That's
there.
bananas.
Yeah, a smart investment, though, when everyone was selling, just didn't want any part of that Tesla game. And the people that got into it, they've been rewarded for it. Anna, what did you think of that story?
I had no idea that they made that much money. That's insane.
Well, and even a year ago, in March of last year, those shares were worth $730 million. So even that from 730 to 3.6 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I believe the term is
That's
embarrassment of riches.
Incredible.
Wow.
At least it's not one dude. It's a company.
True. Yeah.
Anna, what was your in case you missed it this week?
Mine was a story we ran last week before, about a paper supplier that is being sued by the Department of Labor for firing an alleged whistleblower. And this was an interesting story, and I'll try to continue to say alleged when appropriate, but if I miss one, this is all alleged. So don't send me a letter, lawyer. The company is called Midvale Paper Box, and it's being sued by the U.S. Department of Labor after the company allegedly fired a worker they believed was a whistleblower behind revelations that their safety practices were not up to par. These allegations included things like not following lockout tagout procedures when employees were unjamming machines, which makes me want to throw up. It also included a report that a worker asked for safety gloves to operate a shredding machine and was denied multiple times for safety gloves. So this lawsuit comes after a 2017 investigation by OSHA that resulted in the agency proposing $200,000 in fines, I believe. Why is it worth it to skimp it on the safety gloves? Midvale paper. I mean, like, what are these operations thinking that
This has to be one guy, right? Who's on a power trip.
You hope
his,
so.
His one responsibility is you're in charge of the gloves.
Yeah.
The glove guy.
That is what your thing is.
Yeah.
So he's like being selective or sort of like lording power over gloves. I don't know.
Or, I mean, we deal with, we see these companies all the time that are just like so short staffed that people are wearing like 10 hats. And so the person who's like the supply chain manager is also the VP of marketing. And it's like, how do you do both of those things at once?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was that type of a scenario. It's really, really hard to understand though. And, it's just beyond me, the level of negligence there. And you think like getting a warning in 2017, basically with this OSHA thing, and then to continue to operate that way is just unbelievable.
Especially OSHA, we read about earlier in the pandemic, they didn't have enough people to get out and inspect all these facilities and do all of this. But once they get on a trail of somebody, they're not letting go.
Right.
So once OSHA's got a foot in the door, wouldn't you just be like, throwing safety equipment at people and just get them out of there because they were just had a warning here as opposed to actually OSHA dropping the hammer. And now it's going to be that much worse. I mean, they're going to have who knows how many lawsuits that are going to come out of this. And if it's just this one person right now, it's got to be more than just that one person that saw a lot of this going on or was mistreated or whatever you want to say. Yeah, this is, maybe you're right, Ann. I mean, it's just mismanagement based on the fact that people are wearing too many hats and not paying attention.
I don't know, but thank goodness for this whistleblower because, unjamming machines that are not, properly using lockout tagout, that's how people lose their hands and arms. I mean, that's awful.
Well, what was crazy about this story was they fired the worker and thinking that the worker was the one that filed the complaint and initiated the investigation, but didn't. They were completely wrong.
Yeah.
It wasn't that person. It was so even worse. Wow. It was just like, I mean, first you go for gloves and they say no and you're like, all right. And then they fire you and you're like, well, what's happening?
Yeah, basically this person got fired for asking for gloves.
Yeah.
That is outrageous.
Yeah. And then probably saying something like, somebody should know that you guys aren't giving people gloves.
Yeah.
Ooh, now we know who did it.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It reminds me of something like a company that hires you and issues you one set of earplugs, and that's like it. The rest are on you.
Yeah, if you lose them, then sorry.
Yeah, you got to replace them yourself. I don't know. This I found this to be particularly egregious because it did come down to something as simple as gloves.
I know, it was awful. But the one fun fact to this otherwise very dismal report is that Midvale is located in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and that's just down the road from the fictitious Dunder Mifflin Paper Company of Scranton, PA. So, well, I mean, we know they had some safety violations, right?
Oh, yeah. No, it's, I mean, based on my knowledge of the dock there, they definitely didn't have safety gloves.
Michael wanted to operate the baler. That
Exactly.
was the whole problem.
Oh, my God. Just give people the appropriate safety gear, period. Right?
Doesn't seem hard, David.
No, it doesn't seem hard. Also, The Office is legendary.
Also, way to use the word egregious without, I mean, you just it was smooth. I thought for sure that was going to be a stumble right there.
I've fumbled on enough words for today.
Okay.
All right.
Good
so
work.
let's pepper a few more in for final thoughts. Jeff, any final thoughts this week?
So I was doing a lot of driving to and from where we vacationed, and then I had to do some more driving yesterday with running around with my mom and stuff. I bet you I saw I don't know, probably 8 or 10 billboards for manufacturing facilities looking for workers.
Oh, yeah.
Touting starting wages of upwards of like $25 an hour. I mean, that's a pretty good starting wage, especially in some of these small towns that we were going through. So I think we're entering a very interesting sort of economic time here. We know about the restaurants and a lot of the service industries, how much they're looking for skilled workers or just workers, period. And now, manufacturing looks like they are starting to step up in terms of pay. and also promotion, because a lot of those places would not be going sort of a non-traditional route in terms of looking for workers like that. So hopefully they can find them and use it going forward. But it was interesting to see that many of them and to see them promoting those starting wages.
Well, and I think, there's still that stigma to some people, but a career in manufacturing, as we've seen with many of the people in our families, can be a very good and beneficial career.
Well, now it's just starting.
Yeah.
I mean, get into a management position and going from there, there's a lot of opportunity if that's where you're starting at.
Yeah. Anna, your final thought this week.
So this week, our office renovation is complete, as you guys have seen the new holodeck behind us. But everyone moved back into the office after, how long has it been? 16, 17 months?
Yeah, March 13th, 2020.
And it feels really good to be back. It is so quiet in here compared to my house where my children live.
Yeah.
That it's kind of nice. I miss them, but sorry guys, I miss you guys, but you're loud. Super loud.
We were loud for like the first hour.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it is nice to talk to people again. And then there was the realization of like, we actually have a lot to do today.
Right,
so
we do.
we'll catch up later. Yeah. Oh, bagels in the office too for the first time. It was like,
oh man,
interesting. My final thought this week was the same thing as Anna's. Really excited to just be back into the office. And normally it's, 2 or 3 of us in this office. And it was just really weird to have it loud and not be us. It was enjoyable. It was enjoyable. Final thoughts. That was all of them. All right. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. And email the podcast. You can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also get this first if you make sure to subscribe to our many daily or weekly newsletters. We'll make sure you get it in your inbox first. All right, for Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll try to shake out the cobwebs for next week.
We're going to do better, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.